Hey there. Happy February, or at least a sufficient February. Hope you're surviving. So this month, I want to talk about games that should be competitive. Now, to preface this, a common response I'll get to people seeing the Emperor's High Score video that I made is something along the lines of okay, I'm convinced, you've sold me. However, I've got this really cool competitive game I've been working on for a while, and it's in a really solid state. Am I a bad person if I publish it or continue working on it? To which my answer is yes. Yeah, bad person. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. As much as I want people to put out art that mechanically represents and sort of demonstrates and upholds the kind of worldview that you want to see depicted, and uh, less capitalist colonialist stuff. I'm not some pure-hearted enlightened being about this. I still enjoy stomping and oppressing my friends in Root, and I still enjoy killing my friends in Among Us. There's a place for these things. To me, this is a issue of representation. Sort of in the same way, I don't think the answer to feminine representation is to have less scantily clad hourglasses. It's more to have more diverse body types and diverse presentations and styles of women. And so in the same way, it's not that I want to see less competitive games necessarily. I just want to see more multi-victor, more victorless stuff. All right. So now I understand that sort of begs the question, if you're in the process of making a competitive game, wouldn't it be better? Wouldn't it be adding to representation if you instead sort of adapted it into a multi-victor game of some sorts? And in my guts, I'm gonna say yes, and I'm gonna think it's possible, but this gets kind of tricky, especially if you're really deep in the development process. If you've got a nearly finished game, take Coup Games Lily Hop, for example. This is a game that really strives on the competitive aspect and how the race to get three flies first creates these situations where you're having to bend and rack your mind trying to figure out the most optimal way to get your frog to get to fly and back, or some way to disrupt some person's turn where the next turn they're going to get three flies home, and having to do crazy stuff like ferrying a turtle across the map and ferrying it back. That game really strives on that competitive edge, and the players bringing all of the conflict to the other players themselves. And somewhat in recent memory, I remember Matthew Yocker trying testing out just see a multi-victor variant where the game would everybody would basically get one last round after somebody got their third fly to get their own third fly, and it really deflated the experience when players are no longer in such contention. And and I do think it's possible that he could have done something to change the game, some design work to introduce like conflict that's external to the players, but at that point it'd be a very different game. Multi-victor victorless stuff kind of has to be baked into the foundation. It's not really something you could sprinkle on top at the when you're done with the game. So you have to have in mind sources of tension such that even players that are playing collaboratively will feel that pressure to maybe leapfrog off of their friend at the end. So yeah, so not to say that all competitive games can't be adapted. I've heard recently that somebody was able to adapt their game with relative ease, is my understanding, and that it was better for it. So I would still give it a shot, but yeah, sometimes if your game is relying solely on like other players to provide all the attention, then I could see how it ought to be a competitive game. I would like to see more multi-victor, more victorless, but like it's not for everything, you know. So yeah, for this month's Unranked Spotlight, this past month I played the last 19 digits of pi's, the moral Pentalemma. And it's this game where you're like these political entities and you're trying to influence these 5 different sci-fi moral issues by voting on them and by manipulating other people's votes. And the idea is that by default you have some very strict like victory conditions, like you want like 2 issues to pass and 1 to fail, something like that. And the way your turn cycles work is that you vote with a card that has like some variation of positive or negative votes for different issues, and then another card which is an action. And if one of the actions cards that you could take is dialogue, and if you and another player play dialogue, your victory condition becomes less strict, and maybe you only need 2 issues to pass, or 1 to pass and 1 to fail instead of 3. But some of the action cards could let you manipulate our players' votes instead. So an example of what happened in my game was that somebody was like, I've got a thing that will double somebody's votes. Is anybody else like in favor of robots like getting rights? And I'm like, yeah, I want that. And then somebody else was like, oh, so they want robots that have rights. I will play these cards that reverse their votes and make them negative. So like it really created this space of like where like revealing, where there was like 2 layers of it, right? Like there was the like who's going to dialogue with me to make it so it's possible more of us could like potentially win together, and also like who are my allies and who are my enemies, and like because like you could sabotage people's votes, but time spent sabotaging is time spent not dialoguing, right? So I thought it was like a really cool, fun space. It reminded me a bit of this I think it's a Parliament game that Matilda had been working on, but focused very much on like the voting aspect. So I don't know, I thought that was cool. I'm looking forward to seeing how it develops. It's got exactly that kind of like we could work together, but like it in some ways is appealing to just try to sabotage you kind of stuff. It has like a message of like trying to open a dialogue with people you may not agree with to try to reach like a middle ground, which I think is like good in spirit, but I don't know if I would like agree in our current political climate where like your oppositional party might want you removed from society. But like in general, I think the idea is like a positive one. I support it. So that's that. Now for my updates. I'm playing around with the idea for my next edition of Vibes to have a substitute for the teacher mechanic. I'm a huge fan of the nuke personally, but I kind of wish people use it a little bit more. To my taste, I would like to see more games ended a little bit sooner. I witnessed a lot of games where they went on a bit longer than I would have liked. And also there's the rare case where you might be put in the awkward position of having to confront a immature player who thinks they're a lot more mature than they really are. So I'm playing with some ideas to replace that. The problem is mostly with these games with stubborn players with low communication, low information, right? Where they're refusing to play bells and scooping them up because they want to extend the game, trying to find that magical scenario where they're able to win and potentially not disrupt somebody else who's winning. It's that kind of situation I'm trying to deal with, right? So I'm thinking about replacing the teacher cards with cards that have a bell, and on the back of the card it says, whenever cards of the same shape are swapped, reveal one of these bells. So this does a couple things. One is that players who want the game to end can essentially sacrifice their turn by swapping cards of the same shape and get the bell out that way, and a permanent bell. And the other thing it does is that whenever you're swapping with somebody's hand, there's like an element of risk to that, because you might be swapping the same thing, which is like a double whammy, because now you didn't get a card you want and the game is accelerating towards the end state. So I'm still testing it out. It's yeah, I'm still testing it out. And the thing that I'm really worried about is if it's too much added complexity for the weight of this game. What I like, it is something that like one player can police for the most part, but at some level everybody's gonna have to be a little bit aware of it, because if you're swapping from your hand to somebody else's hand, there's a possibility that like one of those two players would have to know that a shape for shape like swap happened, right? So yeah, I don't know. But yeah, that's for next edition. I'm still happy with the nuke mechanic. It's still in Scrabble edition, but yeah, something I'm thinking about. Next, I haven't done a lot of work on Unraveled, but one thing I'm starting to acquiesce on is that it's just gonna be a complex game. It's just gonna be a medium weight logic puzzling game. Because I want more options for the conspirator, and that means adding like a little bit more complexity back into it, and I think I just gotta go with it, you know? Like it's for this game to be what I want it to be, those tools need to be in place, and I'm not seeing anything I could cut right now. As much as I would like to make it easier to digest, I think I might just have to accept this is like a complex game that I'm making here, and just accept that it's gonna have a smaller audience because of it. But you know, it's possible to play without those things, but I don't want to bake it without that spice, you know? So the stuff I want to put back in is stuff like the conspirator being able to tamper evidence so the sleuths can't examine it. Or maybe even something Shanti suggested was being able to decline giving the answer to an examine. Something like that. But I'm not getting a lot of time to develop it, because now that I'm like also developing games or Lunar Punk, I have a little bit less time for that kind of stuff. But well, we'll see. For bread, I'm getting that ready for Unpub Prime in March next month, so hype for that. I decided to go with a new printer because I was not super happy with Game Crafter, so I'm trying print and play games. I want to branch out of my comfort zone, and they're cool. What I like is that their card sheets have more cards, so I found myself in this situation where I had to figure out what to do with all these extra cards, and I decided to add more content. I got to flesh out the Minute Zero deck with the more cards that I wanted it to have, but I was also able to have some extra cards. I could have added coins back in, but I decided if I was going to have extraneous material, it was going to be like Fey material. So I had these little character cards for that the Fey included, so you could pretend to be a human instead of like a ambiguous nation. And the tarot card sheets were also larger, so I added 4 additional postcard bases, which are technically playable. Very, very broken, but technically playable. And 2 of them are Fey, and 2 of them are like rejected canon bases that were rejected because they're just broken. And I'm happy with it. I'm happy I was able to pump out some stuff. Made some minor like visual changes for the walls. Updates to the rulebook based on feedback. Yeah, that's where we're going. That's pretty much my updates. I hope March. Just hang in there, all right? I hope I see you at Unpub Prime too. I'm going to be going there on an official, like, Knife Bunny capacity, but also Lunar Punk capacity. Yeah, so that'll be exciting. Yeah, it feels weird talking about Lunar Punk stuff when this is Knife Bunny channel, but like they're publishing a lot of my stuff right now. They've got Discord up and the Blue Sky, so follow those. If you follow me here, you're gonna get updates on my games anyway. So, but if you want to find out about other cool multi-victor unranked games, I would follow them as well. So, yeah. Ciao. Bye. Were you able to hear my dog barking? Sometimes I'm surprised by what's not picked up. This little lapel mic is like way better than the Blue Yeti that I used to have. I don't really get it. Maybe it's just because like the Blue Yeti was farther away. I couldn't have it right in my face while I was like talking. I could have, but like I'm ADHD. I gotta move around. I don't have an idle I don't have like a static idle animation, you know what I mean?